Good evening and welcome to tonight's Pharmacy Business and Career Network webinar on the topic of maximizing your pharmacy's business potential. Now, I don't need to be the one to tell our audience tonight that pharmacy owners and their teams have had a challenging few years, but what this has highlighted are community pharmacy strengths, which are accessibility, agility, and the willingness to step up and serve the needs of all Australians. To continue to be able to provide services to their patients, pharmacies need to be robust spaces in which opportunities to grow the business are identified and taken advantage of. And that's what tonight is all about. A little bit of housekeeping before we start off. My name is Anika Ahmed. I am a Pharmacy Business and Career Program Officer at the Pharmacy Guild of Australia's National Secretariat. I will be hosting just for tonight, taking over from our usual host, Daniel Oyston, who is our PBCN podcast host. He is currently on holiday overseas, but he will be back for the next webinar. Now, we would love to hear from the audience over the course of this webinar. If you've got questions for our panelists, please pop them in the Q&A box whenever you like, and I'll read them out to the panelists at the end of the presentations. In the event that we run out of time during one of the sessions, I will make sure that your question is recorded and that we connect you to the presenter via email. And of course, no need to take notes because this webinar is being recorded and will be made available on the Guild's YouTube channel in the weeks to come. Now, I'd like to introduce our first presenter, Mani Padisetti, the Chief Operating Officer, Virtual Chief Information Officer, and co-founder of Digital Armour. Mani's background includes accounting, consulting, and marketing in IT and telecoms industries. He has lived, worked, and studied in India, the Netherlands, and New Zealand, where he spent over half a decade as a lecturer in marketing before settling in Australia. Mani's human-centric approach as a leader permeates through their team of 70 employees across the globe, translating into exceptional care shown for their customers and a shared joy in their success. Over to you, Mani.
Thank you very much, Anika. I can tell you, hopefully you can see me, and I can tell you I'm actually in my study. I'm not in a beach. Thank you very much for your presence and for this opportunity. I want to share my screen. And now, let me see. I'll move things around. So this is the presentation. I'm sorry, my dog, I'm at home, so my dog sometimes goes mad. Somebody's at the door. I want to acknowledge the Camerigal people of the Eora Nation as the traditional owners of the land on which our head office in North Sydney is located, and we pay our respects to their elders past, present, and emerging. We recognize and value the ongoing contribution that Indigenous Australians make to this nation and its people. I have a small 30-second video. I'll play that and then I'll explain to you how I created that. So hopefully this works. Let's see, I need to share my. I'll play now, and hopefully you can hear the music as well. I'm a hot air balloon that could go to space. With the air, like I don't care, baby, by the way. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you know what happiness is to you. So what I did was I gave my photo, this photo, to an application called Midjourney. Midjourney generates images. And I asked Midjourney to create me as like a character from The Simpsons, a spiritual guru, and a robot. And then I got all those images and I gave it to somebody to mark them and add music. That's how I created this video. And Midjourney is one of the
generative AI tools. So I'll explain to you what the generative AI is, but you can see AI. What AI can do is just mind-boggling. Okay, this is what we're going to do today. This is our agenda. We'll talk about what ChatGPT and what is generative AI is, what generative AI is, how it can help, how the generative AI can help you, the misconception and misuse of this technology, the best practices, and a couple of use cases specifically for pharmacies. And then if we have time, then Q&A. So if we, when we mention ChatGPT, before this, let me go here. When we mention ChatGPT, we know that it can write a letter, it can write an email, it can write even copy for the website. And what ChatGPT does is it generates content. That's why it's called generative AI. So the images that I told you about Midjourney, that also generates original content. That's why it's called generative AI. ChatGPT is one, Google Bard, Bing Chat, Anthropic. There are few generative AI tools available. ChatGPT, what it means is chat. We know what chat is, conversation. GPT stands for generative pre-trained model. So which means it generates original content and it's pre-trained with massive data that's available on the internet. And it created that and it's trained on that already. That's why it knows the information and it's a model. So GPT stands for generative pre-trained transformer. Transformer is the name that the company gave. The company ChatGPT is owned by a company called OpenAI, and they came up with this name. So generative AI, as you now can understand, is more than writing an email or a content. It can also compose music, it can do paintings, it can do images, it evokes emotions, just like the works of famous artists. And it can help us with human-like conversations as well, with virtual assistants. So where is generative AI? If you look at this picture, the bigger one is, let's use this one, pen. Yeah, I think so, yeah. That's artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is simulation of human intelligence in machines. And then a subset of that is machine learning, that is doing learning and improving data without any programming. And subset of that is deep learning. Deep learning is just mimicking the human brain's structure. And within that, a subset is called generative AI that focuses on creating new and original content, such as text, images, etc. But AI is much bigger than this, but I'm just talking about generative AI today. Now, I want to tell you a story. Let me go to a story. This was an experiment that some people did. They took, a group of researchers took 100,000 famous speeches from the history that were delivered by leaders throughout the history, and they gave it to this AI model. And it ingested all the information, and they gave a simple command. It's called a prompt, simple prompt, and it said, deliver an inspirational speech to motivate a generation. And I want to just show you part of that speech that was generated. We stand at crossroads in history. The choices we make today will determine the future of our world. We can choose to continue down the path of division and conflict, or we can choose to unite and build a better future for all. I believe that we must choose the latter. We must choose to come together, to work together, and to build a world that is free from war, poverty, and hunger. We must choose to create a world where everyone has the opportunity to reach their full potential. This is not an easy task. It will require hard work, dedication, and sacrifice, but I believe that it is possible. I believe that we can create a better world. I urge you to join me in this journey. Let us work together to build a better future for all. This is only part of the speech. The speech went on to discuss several important issues, including climate change, social justice, economic inequality, And the speech was very well received by the audience, and it was praised for its eloquence, its insights, and its call to action. This is what we can do with generative AI. I want to tell you another story. I was at a business conference in June or July, and there was a movie producer, and he told us this story. Oh, by the way, this picture that I have here, this was created by Midjourney as well. So what they did was they gave the generative AI model names of all the major movie blockbuster movie title, and asked it to give a formula for a blockbuster screenplay, and it gave one. Then they gave them the other instructions and asked them to develop a script for a blockbuster movie. It did. Now, hopefully, you are getting an idea about the possibilities and the potential of this generative AI. I'm not talking about the entire AI. I'm just talking about generative AI. So now I want to talk to you about the misconceptions of generative AI. Look at this picture. Somebody is upset with the technology, and they have put on this building, hey, ChatGPT, finish this building. It can't. So they're saying your skills are irreplaceable. Then,
Hey, Mani.
I got this. Yeah.
Hey, sorry to interrupt you, Mani, but we're just seeing your presenter view of the slides. I was just wondering if it was possible to switch to the normal view.
I don't know what's that.
We're seeing the view where like we can see your next slide and the note, and there's no notes, but like the notes below.
Oh, I see. I don't know how to do that.
It's fine if you can't, that's okay.
Yeah, so you can see both slides.
Yes.
At the same time. Okay, all right. Which is good.
Yep.
That's
Okay,
fine.
cool.
Thank you.
Yep, that's fine.
Thank you.
Yep.
So what many people are worried that we are going to be we are going to lose our jobs. Our professions are going to become obsolete, and we are going to be unemployed, and we are going to live without a purpose. But let's see what actually is happening. This is what Microsoft spoke to 30,000 executives in 31 different countries, and they came up with a report. And I think it's How to Fix Work. I think that's the title of the report. And this is a picture from that. And it says, most of the employers are thinking about how to increase the productivity rather than reducing headcount. I don't know how it will change in the future, but right now that's not the focus for employers. They want to see how it can improve. So let's look at this one. So this is from the same report. What we do on a daily basis is we spend 57% of our time in communication. Communication includes emails, Teams chat, Teams meeting, etc., and 43% on creation. That is OneNote, PowerPoint, Excel, Word, etc. we create. So can we not use generative AI to help us create more or better? Yes, that's why they created something called Copilot. And the reason they call it Copilot is it's not going to pilot, it's going to work with us, it's going to work together. We are the pilots, so it's going to work with us. And it's Copilot. And there are many different Copilots available in Microsoft, starting from Copilots for the web, Bing and the Edge, and Microsoft 365, Windows Copilot. Windows Copilot, they said, was released on September 26th, but I still don't have it. If you don't have it, it will come soon. If you already have it, then you probably know how to use it. Dynamics, that's one of the Microsoft products. Security, GitHub, that's for developers. Power Platform. So they have got different Copilots for each one of them. There are lots of videos available. I don't have enough time to show you all the videos, but I'll show you one video a little bit later. And then they said, okay, most of us are, we use Microsoft 365, most of us. So we want to know what's the price for this. It's the price that they have said is $30 per user per month. There's no compulsion that everybody has to have it. They can choose. You can choose which users need to have it, but it's not available yet. It's probably available in 2024. Some people ask me, why is Microsoft not releasing it? Because this is going to improve our productivity. I'll tell you the main reason is Microsoft has got a goal of becoming carbon neutral by 2030. And when you have something like this, they have got a specialized data centers for this, for Copilots, then it's going to increase the carbon emissions. So they are planning, if I'm going to increase the carbon emissions with the Copilot, then where am I going to reduce? So they've been planning for that. And it's released partly for very large companies, Fortune 100, etc. They gave this to the Technology Council of Australia, and they said, we think that we can increase the productivity by 20%. And then they said, let's review it. They came back and they created a report, and they said, actually, if you use Copilot, your productivity will increase by 44%. Imagine that. But the people who are using, I have seen the videos of those people who are using, they're saying that they probably are four times more productive using this. So that's Copilot. So you can use generative AI in we can use it in our daily work. And I want to show you this video on how Copilot works in PowerPoint.
Let's say you're getting ready for your customer pitch meeting. Everyone has had a moment when they wish they could turn their proposal into a customer-ready presentation without having to start from scratch. Now you can. Using just your own words, Copilot can translate Word into PowerPoint. You can also translate PowerPoint into Word. Now you have a professional-looking presentation that you can hone and polish. Let's say you want to add a slide. Give Copilot some quick instructions. There it goes, ready for you to review. So this slide is too wordy. Let's ask Copilot to make it more visual. Give it a few seconds. And check this out. Copilot can even animate the slide. It gives it a professional design treatment in a single click. But it doesn't stop there. Copilot even generates speaker notes for all your slides. It's not only a time saver, it's helping you be a better presenter.
I don't know if you know a product called Power BI. That's a dashboard. And people like us, that's IT people, we create dashboards, we create reports for customers. But now imagine when there's a Copilot available for Power BI, you can just go in because the data is already there, and you can say, tell me what my sales was last month. Compare that to the previous month or last year, this same month, and compare it with all the states. Compare it by customer, compare it by product category, etc., etc. It's all, you don't need people like us. You can do it by yourself. When people worry about that generative AI is going to replace their jobs, there are two options. As employees, they can start improving their skills, but as employers, you can also transform their jobs. So I was thinking, how do you transform? So I wanted to give you some examples. So here, these are just some examples, but every job can be transformed. Customer service, I'm not going to read all of them. Customer service representative can become customer experience specialist. So they're not just going to resolve customer issues, but they're going to improve customer experience. A disability care worker will become assistive technology specialist and they're going to give better quality of care and independence for individuals with disabilities. A teacher is EdTech integrator with giving digital tools and virtual learning platforms, and they can give students an opportunity to take charge of their own learning. Okay, now this is for transformation, but if you say, I want to see if I can actually help in my current role, not transform job, I have got some examples, or two examples. One is both in sales. A business development manager, how can they use it? They can generate sales pitch, presentation ideas. They can prepare a pitch for the customers. And account manager, they can get ideas on how to cross-sell, what are the customer retention strategies? So in every role, if you spend enough time, you will figure out that current role, not a transformed job, current role, you can start using it. Now, what we did was we saw what the potential of ChatGPT or any of these tools are. And then we said it's mind-boggling, but it can actually help us transform and work better using Copilot, and we can transform our jobs. But if we don't do that, even in current jobs, we can use it. But now I want to talk to you. I want to just tell you about the misuse of generative AI. This I used to have a lot of animations, but that was too confusing, so I just do it plain. That's why I said when Anika said we can see 2 slides is better. I just want it to be plain. So you can see here, this first one at the top left, US policing AI at companies to make sure it doesn't violate civil rights. There was a story in a bank. There was a application for loan, and they gave it to the AI model and said, should we approve this loan? And it said no. And then there was a policy that if you deny the application, then you have to explain why you denied it. And they said, oh, ChatGPT told me to deny it. And then it became a news item. When I posted this on LinkedIn, somebody messaged me, what is the government doing? It's too early. Government is not doing anything, but there is a framework, if you want to adopt it, called responsible AI. By the way, government will do something. I will show you in the next slide, but government will do something. Yesterday, the White House has released an executive order on which is on how AI companies, the companies that are producing or generating new solutions using AI, what they need to consider. Which is very similar to responsible AI, the large technology companies like Microsoft are already following. Then even Sam Altman, who is the CEO of OpenAI, he was saying, hey, somebody please, let's regulate this artificial intelligence. And then there are some misuse. There was, I don't know, there are lots of ethical issues that you will come across. A drug trafficker was caught because they used traffic pattern analysis of his traffic patterns, but the lawyer said no, you cannot use that, and so the case should be thrown out. We don't know what will happen to that. But invariably, whatever biases that we have as human beings, that will appear there unless we are careful about it. This was an old item at the bottom right, 2019. But what happened was Steve Wozniak, who was the Apple co-founder, they had an Apple card. I think it was JP Morgan who backed it. And he said, oh, I'm going to buy a computer. And when he was buying a computer, he found out that even though his wife and Steve, they both had one bank account, but he had a higher credit limit than his wife. So he just posted that this is not right. And then JP Morgan, the regulators came to JP Morgan and said, your algorithm is wrong. You did something, and they found the algorithm was not wrong. But there was some other problem. It's a human bias. So we have to be careful how we are using AI. And in Australia, in June, there was a discussion paper on how we should safeguard AI. Also the human beings in Australia in using AI. And the CSIRO, they started the National Artificial Intelligence Center. So as a result of its misuse and fear, ChatGPT was banned in several countries. Italy, a few months ago, it lifted its ban. It's available now in Italy. And what happened then, I don't know if you know this story, Samsung banned ChatGPT. What happened was Samsung developers, they fed their code to ChatGPT and asked, hey, is this good? Can you improve it? And but ChatGPT is public. So the moment Samsung management found out, then they said, no more using ChatGPT. Then Apple banned it. But my question, I always wonder, there is something called Azure OpenAI. OpenAI is the company, as you know, that owns ChatGPT. And based on that, it is Microsoft has created. Microsoft is one of the largest investor in OpenAI. I think it's got $10 billion or something like that. And they put it on Azure, Microsoft Azure. And when you use, so you can use it like ChatGPT, but it is on Azure. When it is on Azure, then your data is protected. It's not going to get leaked. But I always wonder why, even though there's a solution, that instead of simply using that, why do people still ban it? I don't know, but here's a possible explanation. They don't know that something like that is available. They don't have the technical expertise, or they think that, oh my God, then I have to train all these models. But the pre-trained models are already available on Azure. So your data is going to be safe. Another important thing that we need to remember about ChatGPT, it is only specific for ChatGPT, but not for Bing Chat or Google Bard. ChatGPT hallucination. Look at this. OpenAI sued for defamation after ChatGPT fabricates legal accusations against a radio host. I also heard this is an interesting one. Lawyer cites fake cases generated by ChatGPT. So the lawyer goes to ChatGPT and says, "Can you give me some precedents for this particular case?" And it didn't. There were no precedents, so it just made up some and gave it to him, and then it was thrown out of the court. There was in Queensland, a public servant was doing research on child labor, and then it labeled him as a pedophile. So sometimes it happens, so you always need to check the work. Can't 100% rely on that. So this is the best practices I mentioned. This is the best practices. First one is make sure you enable MFA. MFA stands for multi-factor authentication or two-factor authentication. And make sure all your systems are protected against all malware. And if you have, next one is privacy. Remove any identifiable information. If you're going to be just using straight ChatGPT, then make sure you don't put your personal information. If you're going to feed your financial statements in there and asking it to analyze it, then don't be surprised if your financial statements are available on the internet. Wherever it's possible, anonymize your sensitive data, and don't trust the responses 100%. So people can't. When I was following this for a while, and when ChatGPT came out, I used to see people saying, "Oh, how to make $1,000 a day? All you need to do is just go there and write a book." You can write a book using ChatGPT, but it won't make any sense because I have no idea about that particular topic. So it is literally a co-pilot for you, for all of us. And always seek feedback from from your users. Embrace it as a collaborator and co-creator, not necessarily to completely give it, and you still need to read it, edit it if you're going to use ChatGPT or anything like that. And augment your capabilities using generative AI rather than replacing it, and continuously learn and adapt, because we are only in the beginning stages. It's going to change. And be transparent with your customers. I read a case where there was a freelancer who was supposed to write content for somebody, and then they got fired because they were just using ChatGPT and they were charging the same price. But you just being open with the customers, this is what we are doing, will be very, very helpful. How much? Okay, I got this. So specific use cases for you. You can use medication. It's happening in Australia, medication adherence monitoring. So that is, you can get the data from prescription records, pharmacy claims data, and patient self-reported data. So how will it help? It will help with interventions, coming up with tailored interventions to help improve adherence. This is one. Actually, one of the large chains actually are trialing this at the moment. And the second one Again, another one in Australia doing this. Fraud detection. Pharmacies lose a lot of money with fraud, financial loss. So you can prevent that. So it can, using the same data in real time, it can flag the transaction if it's a fraud. So those are two specific ones. Chat, I told you about ChatGPT, but I also want to tell you there are lots of new things coming. Here's one. I want to show this to you. This is, where is this? It's on the next page.
I am not Morgan Freeman, and what you see is not real. Well, at least in contemporary terms, it is not. What if I were to tell you that I am not even a human being? Would you believe me? What is your perception of reality? Is it the ability to capture, process, and make sense of the information our senses receive? If you can see, hear, taste, or smell something, does that make it real? Or is it simply the ability to feel? I would like to welcome you to the era of synthetic reality. Now, what do you see?
It is very interesting. The person who was at the bottom, he's actually speaking, and then it comes to us in deepfake as Morgan Freeman speaking. But if you listen to this person, he's Dutch, so he does not speak anything like Morgan Freeman. And there was a Joe Rogan. Hope you know who he is, and he interviewed Steve Jobs in 2023. Both Steve Jobs' voice and Joe Rogan, both are fake. And this is what we should be expecting in the future.
Demi Moore and Ghost. You're a memory from the past. So without further ado, my friend who is difficult to describe and wonderful, and I'm so grateful he came on the show.
How's it going? Good to see you, buddy. It's been a long time since I've been on the show. I've missed this. It's always fun.
How's it going? Come on, tell me about Jobs. It's always good to see you, buddy. I'm so happy you came on, man.
Yeah, it's great to be on the show. Your audience is just so different from your normal Apple users, and that's a good thing. It's cool.
Well, you know, I was an Apple user way before I did this show. I've been a fan of yours and Macintosh since the 1980s.
Well, you know, we just kind of figured that out. Even though Apple is big, it's still like 0.5% of the total users. People who listen to your show are a different group. They're weird.
Well, that's good.
So I just want to tell you this. So you can see that anything can happen. There are lots of new things are going to happen. That's why I asked you, I suggested or recommended that please continuously monitor what's happening. Now that you have got some idea about what's happening with generative AI, continuously monitor, because there will be new things that will be happening on a daily basis, not monthly basis. When personal computers were invented, you know how many people thought that it was a toy? We didn't take it seriously, but it disrupted our world. The way we work has changed. It is going to happen. So Professor Christensen said that a disruptive innovation is unattractive to the established leaders in an industry. In the beginning of this year, there were 1,000 people, including Elon Musk, signed a petition to stop AI. And then now Elon Musk started his own AI company. But AI is here. It's going to be, we have to just adopt it. We have to find ways how we can embrace it, how we can leverage it. Any new technological change that happens, there will always be naysayers, but we can be that, or we can find ways how we can improve ourselves. I don't know if you remember, there used to be typists before personal computers. They're all gone. We are the typists now. So things will change, but we don't know what that will be. Just want to show you a couple of examples. Again, this was created using Mid-Journey. When electricity was invented, people were protesting. When motor car was introduced in the UK, there were protests. But things will change. We have to just keep adopting it. But Coca-Cola is one company that actually said, okay, we are going to use this technology. And this is by OpenAI's DALI 2. They created all these images using DALI 2. That's OpenAI owns another product called DALI 2. It creates images. I'll just play this ad. You probably have seen it on already, but I just wanted to show you that this is how you can embrace it. I have to play somewhere here. Okay, I don't know how to play this. But this is an ad, that Coca-Cola ad that you would see. It was done in Andy Warhol Museum in the UK. But it's not playing. I'll stop. I can play it. Okay. All right. Anyway, sorry. Maybe yes. Can you still see my screen? Yes. So that's what we covered so far. What is ChatGPT and what is generative AI? How it can help you, the misconception and misuse of this technology, the best practices in a couple of use cases for your pharmacies. Thank you very much for your opportunities. If you have any questions, then if we have time, then Anika will tell me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mani, for that presentation. We did have one question. I believe they wanted to know what your dog's name was.
Sorry?
I believe they wanted to know what your dog's name was.
Oh,
I think you
Benji.
mentioned Benji. Lovely. Awesome. I think that was all the questions we had. If you do have any other questions, audience, if you do have any other questions for Mani, please put them in the chat and I'll be happy to connect you. We will move to the next presentation, just in interest of time. I'd like to introduce our next presenter, Georgina Odell, who's a principal at Meridian Lawyers. Georgina has more than 25 years experience as a commercial lawyer. She acts for a large range of business clients, including pharmacists, dentists, medical practitioners, online health businesses, national peak body associations, education and care services, veterinary practitioners, gym and fitness businesses, and companies listed on the ASX. That is quite the list. Georgina handles the sale and acquisition of businesses and companies, particularly in the healthcare sector, and prepares a range of commercial agreements, including partnership, shareholder, and buy-sell agreements. term and condition of businesses, including for online businesses, privacy policies, data breach response plans, independent contractor agreements, and services and facilities agreements. She also advises on the leasing of commercial premises and in business disputes. Over to you, Georgina.
Thanks, Annika. Can you see the screen?
Yep.
So you've got the presentation.
Yes. Yeah. Perfect.
Okay, perfect. First of all, I just wanted to say thank you to Manny for that presentation. That was really interesting. I've heard something about AI, but I now know a lot more about it than I did before. Meridian Lawyers had cybersecurity training this week, and AI was mentioned as part of that. And we were told that, amongst a lot of other things, quite shocking things about cyber security and cyber breaches, that AI has recently been used to blackmail parents of a young man who was making TikTok videos. And fraudsters managed to take his voice from the TikTok videos and use AI to make a telephone call to his parents to say that he was overseas, he was in jail, and he needed them to pay X amount of dollars to a particular bank account. I don't know what the outcome of that was, but that's an example of how fraudsters are using AI at the moment. So when I was putting this presentation together, I thought about the areas in which we are seeing disruption and innovation in the pharmacy, community pharmacy industry. And we are seeing quite a lot of it. And I went back to the Pharmacy Guild of Australia's framework for change, which seeks to map out the 9 growth pathways for pharmacies for their future success. And the number 1 in there is digital enablement. And here are some of the other pathways for pharmacy's future success, according to the Pharmacy Guild. That is to set the pharmacy up as a community health hub, to look at your business operations, your back office operations, to leverage your brand, to provide health services in the pharmacy, to provide health services in patients' homes, and to review the products that you're actually providing and the distribution services for those products. So the ones that we see the most of at the moment are the digital enablement, the community health hubs, which are being set up, changes to business operations in the back office, and changes to physical operations of pharmacies, and brand leverage. So those are the ones that I'm going to focus on tonight. And the message that I wanted to get across to everyone is that whenever there is disruption and innovation, as Manny said, there is change. And in an industry as highly regulated as pharmacy, when there is change, we really urge the pharmacist to think about whether regulatory approvals are needed, because we see steady flows of very entrepreneurial pharmacists doing really innovative things and disrupting markets, local towns, etc. But sometimes they forget that there is a regulator. And when there is change in a pharmacy, you should always think about whether you need to get an approval, because if you go ahead without the necessary approvals, it means that your innovation, your disruption is not as successful as it would otherwise be. So that's the key message that I wanted to get over to everyone. So talking about digital enablement, I think this is, as Manny said again, it's inevitable and it's a necessary part in almost every industry. And that includes medical practitioners, hospitals, pharmacies, allied health. It also includes law firms. Law firms are looking at the way that AI can be used. And I really wish that I'd seen and known about Copilot when I was doing my PowerPoint presentation today, I would have used that. But it is, I think, something to look forward to. But it does also bring digital enablement and the increased digitization of our businesses, whichever business you're in. It does bring a very new and unforeseen amount of legal, commercial, financial, and reputational risk because of cybercrime. And cybercrime is it's a huge issue at the moment. It's a huge issue in the legal industry because some of you may have heard that there is a prominent law firm in Australia who, I think it was in April of this year, suffered a cyber attack. And the implications for that firm have been very wide ranging. And the implications for all law firms as a result of that, I've looked at our own processes, and it's the big issue at the moment for us. And I think it needs to be for any business that is moving into digital enablement. So Manny touched on privacy as well. And I do want to talk about this a little bit because I think that pharmacists are not that great. They could improve on understanding the Australian privacy principles and the requirements on them as pharmacists to protect privacy. And concepts of a right to privacy were first made law in the 1950 European Convention on Human Rights, which states that everyone has the right to respect for his private and family life, his home, and his correspondence. And that was the first statement in law of the concept of privacy. And the data protection laws in Europe carry very, very serious penalties for breaches. And the reason for this is because the roots of the EU data protection laws and those penalties trace back to World War II, when the Nazis were using personal data, which in those days was collected by knocking door to door and writing things down with a pen and paper. But they were using that personal data to identify Jews and other minority groups and to keep records about them, which were used for the purposes that we now all know about. That's where this all started. And I find that fascinating. And it brings privacy and the importance of privacy into a new light when you understand how this all began. So in Australia, the Commonwealth Privacy Act was passed in 1988, and this brought in the Australian privacy principles, which are requirements for all entities which are governed by the Privacy Act 1988. All private sector health service providers, which includes pharmacists, are governed by the Privacy Act and the Australian privacy principles. And the reason for this is because health providers possess not only personal information, but they also possess what's called sensitive information, which is health information, financial information, information about religion, information about health is all sensitive information. So every pharmacist that's operating a business, a community pharmacy, is bound by the Privacy Act. And increasingly, every pharmacist is collecting data or holding or storing or using data, including sensitive data about patients. In Australia, we have the regulator for privacy, which is the Office of the Australian Information Commissioner. It's an independent national regulator, and they have set up what's known as the National Data Breaches Scheme. And I'll talk a little bit about this a bit later on in my presentation. What I wanted people to understand is that in Australia, the Commissioner can apply to the Federal Court for an order that an entity pays the Commonwealth a penalty. And for serious or repeated interference with privacy, the penalty for an individual could be $2.5 million. For a body corporate, a company, it could be up to 30% of that body's turnover during a particular period. And orders can be made against any person or entity that has seriously or repeatedly breached the Privacy Act. So we've gone from 1988, when there were no financial penalties, to the last couple of years where we now know that there are financial penalties which are at risk. The healthcare sector was the highest reporting sector for data breaches in 2021 and continues to be the highest reporting sector for breaches. There are reasons for this. It's not necessarily because it's not good at looking after data. It is a target for fraudsters. Lack of privacy policies is an issue. Suspicious data uses are issues. They, as I say, they're a target for malicious and criminal attacks. There is a substantial level of human error in data breaches. And there's also a substantial level of offshore data storage of health information. And these are some of the reasons why the healthcare sector is top of the list when it comes to breaches. So having said that every pharmacy business should have a privacy policy, and I should also say that that privacy policy would be expected to be accessible through the pharmacy's website. So you'll often see when you go on a website, you'll see link to our privacy policy on there. That's what pharmacists should be doing. The privacy policy shouldn't just be cut and pasted from another business or another pharmacy. In order to be a good policy, it should be considered and it should be tailored to your own business. And it should set out your business entity name and contact details, the kinds of personal information that you collect and store, how you collect personal information, where you store the personal information, the reasons why you need to collect it, how you will disclose personal information. And so in preparing this privacy policy, you need to really sit down and think about, how do I disclose personal information? Do I have a software provider that has access to personal and sensitive information? And you have to analyze that, and you should be disclosing that in the privacy policy. Privacy policies don't have to be really long. They should be user-friendly. They don't have to be highly legalistic. In the privacy policy, you should also be setting out how a person can access their own personal information and ask for a correction if it is incorrect, and how a person can lodge a complaint if they think that their information's been mishandled. And it should set out how you're going to handle their complaints. For example, you will respond within a certain period of time. And this is quite important. The last line there, if you're likely to disclose information outside Australia, you should be disclosing which countries you are likely to disclose their information to. And so when you're entering into agreements with software providers, which will use or store or process personal or sensitive information, you should be checking where the servers are located and whether they're outside of Australia. And if they are, the privacy policy should be stating the jurisdictions in which information may be held on servers. So that's just a little bit of background on privacy policies. In terms of malicious and criminal attacks, there's lots of data, if you're interested in this, on the Office of the Australian Information Commissioner. But these criminal attacks are increasing in complexity and volume. 12 months ago, we knew about it, but it wasn't a major issue for us. Like I say, in my industry now, it's a major, major issue. 76% of the people whose personal information has been in a data breach report that they suffered harm as a result. And the top 5 sectors to notify data breaches are: number 1, health service providers; 2, finance, which would include superannuation; 3, recruitment agencies; 4, legal accounting and management services; and 5, insurers, who obviously have information about claims. They have information about professional indemnity claims. All of these entities have information which, if the third party fraudster can get hold of it, they can blackmail organizations or try to blackmail organizations into releasing it onto the dark web. And they do that. They release information, sensitive information about health issues, addresses, NDIS status, passport details, credit card details. These things are and will continue to be published on the dark web. So you can see from this chart here that between January and June of 2023, this is in Australia, there were 409 data breach notifications. So these are entities who have realized that they've had their data or their clients' data has been breached, and it's serious enough for them to contact the Office of the Information Commissioner and report it. And of these types of data breaches, the greatest was malicious or criminal attack, which came to 70%. Within that 6-month period, human error was 26%, so human error is still a big issue, and system fault was only 4%. So the kinds of cyber incidents which might happen, I just really quickly talk about these because it's not my expertise, except that I know that these things happen. Phishing apparently is where an attacker masquerading as a trusted entity dupes a person into opening an email or a text message, or clicking on a malicious link which installs malware and either freezes the systems or reveals sensitive information. And they can use that information then for things like unauthorized purchases, theft, identity theft, and fraud. Ransomware does what it says on the tin. It enables the third party to threaten to publish a victim's personal data or sensitive data or block access to it unless a ransom is paid. Hacking, we'll know what that is, where a third party is able to enter a system and do whatever they want to do in a system. And malware is malicious software which extracts data to leverage victims for financial gain. And what we've learned this week is that those kinds of organizations which used to be into people trafficking and drug trafficking are now looking into this area as being the most lucrative area of crime that they can be in because of those ransoms. Risks for you and your customers are reputational harm, obviously, loss of profits, distress and embarrassment, severe psychological harm for people who are affected by it, and also a risk of physical harm and family violence if addresses which need to be kept private are published on the web. In terms of human error, which we saw was a substantial amount of data breach in the first 6 months of this year, common examples in the healthcare sector include emails being sent to the wrong recipient, unintended release or publication of information, failure to use the blind copy when you're sending an email to a group of people, because if you use the copied in CC as opposed to blind copy, everyone can see everyone else's email addresses, and that's a data breach unless people have consented to that. And also loss of paperwork or loss of a data storage device. I wanted to enable attendees today to understand that in Australia we now have this notifiable data breaches scheme. So if there is a data breach, and it's an eligible data breach, and that means that there's been unauthorized access or disclosure or loss of personal information that an organization holds, which is likely to result in serious harm to one or more individuals, which could include financial harm, and the organization could not prevent the likely risk of serious harm with remedial action, then there may be a duty to report this to the Office of the Information Commissioner. What I really strongly recommend to every business is that you have what's called a data breach response plan, which is almost like your emergency and evacuation rehearsal. You have a plan, you rehearse it. If it ever happens, hopefully you can jump on it quickly. Everyone knows what needs to be done in the event of a data breach. And this is a framework which sets out the roles and responsibilities in managing a data breach. It doesn't have to be complicated again. It should be in writing. Staff should understand the plan. The plan should be tested. And there should be, if you can't negate the risk of serious harm with your own remedial action, then there may have to be a prompt notification to the affected individuals. There's a decision-making process and there's flowcharts to go through. It's much more than I can possibly cover in this half-hour presentation, but the learning point that I did want to get across is that it's really recommended that you do have, as well as the privacy policy, a notifiable data breach scheme. And very broadly, if there has been a data breach, or a suspected breach, the requirements are broadly to try and contain the damage, to assess the damage, to notify if it seems that you do need to notify, and then to review the situation, work out how this has happened and how this can be prevented in the future. Just from my own advice that I've given over the years to clients, the learning points from me are, please do have a bespoke privacy policy. Only collect personal or sensitive information which is necessary to provide your products or services. So if you don't, the less you have, the better in terms of the legal liabilities. Take proactive steps to protect the information that you hold. The software out there that can help protect all sorts of things, and can test your systems, can test your passwords. Review the information that you hold periodically. Do you still need it? Is it up to date? Can you delete it? Because if you've deleted it, it can't get hacked. Have a data breach response plan. And the way the Office of the Information Commissioner talks about this is privacy by design. So designing and embedding privacy issues into your business as we move forward and all of our lives change with digital innovation. With community health hubs, the way that this is coming through our doors is where pharmacists are co-locating with medical practitioners. Obviously beneficial for everyone's business. Also for patients, patient convenience is huge when you've got the doctors and the pharmacists co-located. But what I would say is, remember what I said at the start about please don't forget the regulator. And I haven't looked at all of the states in Australia, but certainly in New South Wales, the approval of the Pharmacy Council of New South Wales will be required if you are subletting part of your pharmacy premises to medical practitioners, because you are effectively contracting the footprint of your pharmacy. And that needs the approval of the Australian Community Pharmacy Authority and also the state regulator in New South Wales and Victorian Pharmacy Authority in Victoria. You may also need your landlord's or the head landlord's consent to grant a sublease or a license to the medical practitioners. You may also need, highly likely to need, the landlord's or the head lessor's consent to fit out works and any new signage that you might be putting in. So remember your lease as well, and your head landlord as well if you have one. Have a look at the permitted use of the premises under the lease. Is it just for pharmacy only, or are you allowed to have a medical practice in there? If not, then you should be seeking the consent of the landlord. So these are just some practical tips, and I'm just quickly move through. Business operations. Now, one of the ways in which we've seen pharmacies innovate and expand and grow is where they need more room. They can't do their Webster packing, they haven't got the room, but they don't want to buy another pharmacy. So what they sometimes make use of, certainly here in New South Wales, are what's known as professional services rooms. And the Health Practitioner Regulation National Law defines these rooms as premises. So they're separate to the pharmacy and they're in addition to the pharmacy, but they are associated with that pharmacy business. But they're premises in which a person carries on a pharmacy business that involves only the preparation and packaging of drugs, or the packaging of drugs by or under the personal supervision of a pharmacist, for supply to individual patients or to a healthcare facility, for supply to patients or residents of that facility, and the storage of those drugs. So it's your Webster packing, your storage that you might have just down the road or across the road or next door. In New South Wales, these professional services rooms need to be approved by the Pharmacy Council of New South Wales before they should be opened. Leveraging the brand. Your brand, your business name attaches very much to the goodwill of the business. And when you sell a pharmacy business, the vast majority of the price is attributable to the goodwill. It's the thing that, this intangible thing that brings patients back time and time again to you. So in this regard, as lawyers, we would urge you to Check that you have registered your business name with ASIC. It's a very simple thing to do. Don't need a lawyer to do it. Your accountant can do it, or you can do it. But check that you've protected that business name so that no one else can use it. Remember that a change of name in New South Wales requires a notification to the Pharmacy Council of New South Wales. So again, if you're changing something, don't forget the regulator. If you develop a design logo which is strongly associated with your particular business, consider registering that as a trademark to protect it so that someone else can't come along and use your trademark or your name. And if you're inventing things, consider protecting things that you make or invent, such as some kind of packaging, for example, with a patent. Very quickly about establishing a new pharmacy. Some of the biggest disruptors in community pharmacy are those entrepreneurs that go out there and they find a site where they can open a new PBS approved pharmacy. Some do not succeed with this because it is a difficult process, but some do succeed with this. I just wanted to mention the pharmacy location rules. These rules set out the circumstances in which a new PBS approved pharmacy can be established. The regulator in this regard is the Australian Community Pharmacy Authority. The rules are complicated and the ACPA has to be provided with a host of evidence and has to be satisfied about a whole host of things. But just to mention that that is there. Private pharmacies, these are pharmacies that don't have a PBS number. We see a number of these. Don't forget that they will still need to be approved by the state regulator, even if you don't have a PBS approval number. Relocations, again, these are disruptors in the local markets. You could be moving to enhance the footfall to the pharmacy. Again, the pharmacy location rules apply. There are various types of applications. I won't go into any detail here. It's too complicated, and we're running out of time. But there is that opportunity to really relocate a pharmacy, which is a form of disruption. And again, detailed evidence needs to be provided to the ACPA. And again, a form of disruption and innovation is when a pharmacy changes hands. And I've set out the process here briefly. You could be changing your name, changing the brand, changing to the services and the products being offered. What I would say is that take care with heads of terms and offers to purchase. Take care as to whether they are legally binding or not at a very early stage. Take care with your due diligence, financial and legal due diligence. Exchange of contracts is when contracts become legally binding, but if you've signed a legally binding heads of terms prior to that, you could be tied in. There will always be conditions precedent and approvals that need to be required to a change of ownership of a pharmacy. And again, don't forget, when the change of pharmacy ownership changes, there will be notices to the regulator in your particular state about what's been going on with the pharmacy. So I don't think I've got time for questions, but I'm more than happy to respond to questions at a later date. That's the end of my presentation.
Thanks so much, Georgina. Really, really interesting, particularly as we've just finished Cybersecurity Awareness Month. So that was really great. I don't think we have any questions in the chat box, but I've got one quick question for you from myself, Georgina, if you've got a minute.
Sure.
What would you just off the top of your head, are there any recent legal developments or cases that pharmacy owners should be aware of, particularly in the changing landscape that we're in now?
Do you mean 60-day dispensing?
Yes, yeah.
I'm not aware of any cases about that. What we did see, because I do a lot of pharmacy sales and pharmacy purchases, and as well as the relocations and the new pharmacies, and we did see that just after 60-day dispensing was announced, those deals that had not already exchanged contracts just fell through overnight. So purchasers went, no, not touching it. But luckily we had exchange contracts with the majority of the matters that we had on just before Easter. So it was legally binding at that stage. we were very worried with some of the cases as to whether the purchasers would delay, and then because there's often a long stop date by which a purchaser has to get the approvals, and if they don't get the approvals by that date, then parties can walk away. We were concerned about that, but in all of the cases where we'd exchange contracts, we have completed. None of the purchasers tried to renegotiate or walk away. What we are being told, I mean, this is not my area of expertise, that's just anecdotal from what I'm being told by my clients, is that the 60-day dispensing has not made an awful impact on sales and purchases. If anything, I think there might be a few more sales and purchases going on at the moment because of these changes. But what has made more of an impact is the high interest rates on lending. So the valuations are a bit more difficult, and higher interest rates are impacting. So that's all I can tell you about that, really.
Of course. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yep.
Thank you
Thanks,
for having
Georgina.
me. Thank you.
No worries. Thanks, Georgina, for sharing your expertise with us this evening.
You're very welcome.
Thanks. Our next presenter is Andrew Pattinson, a Chief Innovation Officer at the Platform Alliance Group. Andrew is an advocate for the future of pharmacy with a passion for empowering pharmacies to serve and strengthen their communities. His commitment is evident in his efforts to bolster pharmacies in providing essential healthcare services. One of Andrew's notable accomplishments lie in his invaluable support to pharmacies in crafting health solutions and programs. He has also collaborated closely with suppliers to pioneer innovative initiatives that offer comprehensive healthcare solutions to patients within the pharmacy setting. His multifaceted expertise and dedication contribute significantly to the evolving landscape of pharmacy and its essential role in communities. Over to you, Andrew.
Thank you, and thanks for that introduction. Sounds a bit chat GPT for my liking. Now I'm just checking that is sharing properly, so thumbs down if it's not. Otherwise, I'll get right into it. So I am conscious of time because we are running a bit late. It is a lovely Wednesday night, and I do want to let everyone get back. So as per the intro, I'm the look after innovation, and innovation is about helping our members, our clients and pharmacies nationally with their business models. So we'll talk a bit about that tonight. Across the Platform Alliance Group, we touch over 2,000 pharmacies. We have brands, we have independent offers, we have technology platforms, we have consulting programs, and we have products. So we do a lot of stuff, and all of it's in pharmacy. And the things you want to cover tonight is about some business model considerations. So what business model is right for me as we enter yet another time of exciting and change. With change brings opportunity, notwithstanding that there are some challenges at the moment. But what does that mean for your business model? How do you align your strategy to your structure? How do you execute your model beautifully and flawlessly? And so we'll talk about some concepts and some models around that, and then how are you measuring success? So just as a starting point, I mean, community pharmacy, what business are we actually in? Are we retailers? Are we healthcare providers? Are we, as we come off the back of COVID, most people, got a vaccination at their local pharmacy, and that has created a halo effect. What we've seen is we've done a lot of research of patients and consumers in the last 5 years, and the services that your pharmacy offers does create a sense of what they call a halo effect. So your patients genuinely, once they've had a vaccination or engaged in another health program, they feel like they've got a deeper connection to the business. So, but there's lots of different models out there. And the one thing that pharmacy is sort of different from any other healthcare provider and retail is it's so reliant on the proprietor, that as an owner or a manager of a pharmacy, it's really about whether you can do it or you can't do it. Really depends so much on whether you believe you can. And I pop Carol Dweck in brackets there. Pop it into YouTube. There's some fantastic videos, but Dweck's got this concept of mindset. And so we all get to pick our mindset. It's a great thing about being human, is that you can either be fixed or you can have a growth mindset, and you can have a look at the opportunities, the obstacles that are in front of you, and you can constantly change your approach, find an opportunity to grow, have a look at new business models, have a look at new business structures, partnerships, who is going to offset the skills that I don't have, and how do I do that? And in pharmacy, so often we saw for so long such a fixed mindset. COVID shook us out of it. What we don't want to see is that people moving back into that fixed mindset that I'll just keep doing what I've always done, because we can see with 60 Day, if you do what you've always done, you're just not going to get what you've always got. So as the world continues to evolve, the next phase of growth is going to come from other areas and other solutions, services, and programs that historically we didn't offer. And so we are all going to have to change and shift our business models. And so when you think about a business model, and really this is a framework for you to do a quick bit of hygiene on pharmacies currently, or as you're starting to evaluate business models going forward, it's really, who do you want to be? And so in defining your strategy, and we'll talk a bit about the things to go through with that. And business models, it's like pants, one size never fits all. They're all different. Every individual is going to be looking to own a different part of the model. So what's critical is you define your strategy. You don't let someone else define it for you. And once you do that, you've got to align your structure. So that way, when you go out and you find the people, you're finding the best people for your business, not just someone with a pulse or someone who'll show up on time. Then a system and workflow. So what are the systems within the business? What's the workflow? And we'll talk about different business models and the requirements there. And then the measurement and KPIs. So, and then it's rinse, wash, repeat. So my strategy is clear. I've got the right people in the right roles with the right goals. They know what they're doing. There are very clear standard operating processes, and I know what good looks like. I know what I'm measuring. I know I'm measuring my basket size, and I know I'm measuring, what other metrics. And if it's working, I do more of it, and then I stop and have a look. So what's really critical is to first start with strategy. And if we start to have a look at the ways you can do that anyone can go out there and do tomorrow. So the first thing is first to understand that if we start on the left-hand side there, so when you're looking at what's best for you, right, financial and lifestyle are really critical in community pharmacy, because lifestyle, it's what life stage am I at? I was talking to some pharmacists just last week. They're in a partnership. One of the partners wanted to buy a group of pharmacies. They were going to spend over $10 million. One of the guys wants to retire next year and could not have less interest in buying and spending that kind of money on more assets. He's happy just to sit on the assets that he has. So depending on which stage of your life cycle you are, that really is going to be a significant determinant on the type of business you want to run, the type of risk profile that you're willing to adopt. And financial capability and capacity. So, I know some of the accounting firms and the brokers are talking about, some smaller businesses being sold at over the valuation because young pharmacists are buying themselves a job, that they can't buy larger pharmacies. They don't just want to be an employed pharmacist. So they are spending more to buy an asset. So when you look at these things, what's the value proposition that you believe you're going to add to the community? What support do you require? And how much control are you willing to give up? There are models, obviously, of pharmacy that you can give up almost total control. But is that something you want to do, and how long for? What are your personal values? What's your value set? What is the health offer? So when you look at the future of community pharmacy, what do you see? Is it something, full scope of practice? And we'll talk a bit more about that. Is that something that you really want to ensconce in your model and be a leader in? Or is that something you think feels like hard work? And so then looking at the demographics of your area, and I could not encourage you enough, and I'll talk about that in a second, to have a look at the demographics. What's the cost base? What's your rent? What is your digital footprint? The guys have talked about that tonight. Is what's the online presence that you've got, and what do you see your customer and patient and consumer experience? What are the skills of your team as at today? And then what's the messaging and marketing you put out there? So there's so many different considerations, and depending on where you are, who you are, what you want to be, all of those are going to be indexed differently. And it is a matter of navigating those things. So when we start looking at those things, demographics, it is almost ludicrous the number of pharmacies that don't understand the demographics and the changes in their area. So, quick census stats, you can find out health conditions in your area, you can find out any changing population stats, demographics. And what it does is it helps you start to sculpt your offer. It helps you understand what you're missing out on. And if you then start to evaluate the community that you're in, then what are the opportunities for you? And then, as I said, then you can start to sculpt, what should my financial structure be? Should I be in a partnership? Am I best being a sole trader? Is there a gap in the market somewhere that we can you open a new pharmacy as a private pharmacy, or do you see something in the stats in the community? And some of that's things like NDIS spend. So we're doing a lot of work with the NDIS at the moment, and there are the postcodes that have the highest saturation of NDIS spend. And so what's the correlation with opportunity within community pharmacy and those things? So starting to look at some other metrics so you can cultivate a business model. And then if you have a look at what's happening now, and I've left women's health out because it's one that's sort of rolling in nationally with UTIs and obviously with ongoing contraception. But if we have a look at what the market's doing and what we know is coming, so full scope of practice, which are the categories that you see an opportunity based on your demographics, the skills of your team, and your own passion that you could own? You could be the primary healthcare destination in your area for pain. And with some of the data we've looked at, 15% of our script volume is in pain meds, about 11% of our retail sales. And as we go forward, there's going to be 2 full scope of practice conditions that are going to fall under that moniker of pain. So it is good business. You have patients, you have consumers, and now you're going to be able to engage with those patients and consumers at a deeper level in pain, in cardiovascular, respiratory, digestion, et cetera, et cetera. So that connection with the patient is going to be deeper. Now, you're not going to be an expert in all these areas. So when you start to look at it, what business model is best going to be able to deliver these? And is it something I want to do, or is another business model might be best for me? And then if you have a look at the opportunity, and this is just a quick basket analysis, and people always, whenever you show a basket analysis, people always answer with yes, but, but the reality is, if there's a $20 service fee for a UTI consult, there's an antibiotic script, and then we could all argue amongst ourselves as to what, gold standard quality treatment, but it does take time, 24, 48 hours for a trimethoprim or something to kick in. So a symptom relief of Urel is good. That's what you should be providing to your patients. Urinary tract support, preventative supplements. So really the choice is up to you. It could be a $35 basket, or it could be a $95 basket. And you're not going to have 100% success. But as we start to look forward into these things, this starts to shape the opportunity that you can see within a business model. And then it helps you start to think about the structure and the kinds of people you bring into your pharmacy, rather than just somebody left, so I've got to go and get somebody. I'll try and get someone who's trained in this, or, it could be worth getting an extra pharmacist or a graduate or those kind of things. So just aligning your structure. And then looking at at what's available. There's not many sectors like ours that would have so many brands that would be available to a community pharmacist. So as you look around the market, is there something that's going to meet the service requirement and the premium or discount kind of model that I'm looking for? So when you start to look at these things, is one of these brands that, does it represent what I represent, or do I want more control? Or, so starting to look at all of the models available that, you can execute as part of your ongoing business strategy. And then distilling all of that. So once you know the demographics and you know the market and you know all of the things. Then you go and you build a business plan. And with business plans, in our experience in community pharmacy, you don't need 100 pages. If you've got 100 pages, you're never going to look at it. What it needs to be is a well thought through, market analysis with a competitor analysis, do some segmentation. What do you want to be? What's that going to look like? What are the products and services that you're going to be offering? How are you going to tell people? And we'll talk a little bit about this in a second. What are the financial requirements that you've got to deliver to? What is the risk? And obviously IT. And then things like how are you going to embed automation, technology? What role will that play in your business going forward? So you can future-proof the business. And particularly, one of the critical things is that if it doesn't have to be done by a human, let's find a way to automate the process, and anything that does not require that level of engagement, let's start to automate, and then we can redeploy and find the time. So as we start to look at these things as a model of the 8 ways to win in retail. So once you've decided on whatever business model you've looked like, and I'll give you my details at the end, I'm always more than happy to have a chat with people or help them just with a few questions or decisions to make. But the 8 ways to win in retail. So this is an old methodology from two professors, Tiggett and Ring, who are quoted down the bottom. And pretty much what they said is there's only 8 ways to win in retail. So, and for the purposes of this, I include pharmacy as retail and we're healthcare retail. So, and those 5 pretty colors on the outside is the pentagon. They're the things that the customer or the patient, the consumer sees. And the 3, the triangle in the middle, the systems, suppliers, and logistics, are the things that the customer and the patient don't see. So that's the stuff that's happening behind the scenes to enable you to run an efficient business. And so you always start with the pentagon. So once you've decided on what your business model is, how do you execute it ruthlessly and brilliantly? And the real question when you look around those 5 points of the pentagon, do I win? So when I look at my competitive set, do I win? Do I lose? Or am I the same? And what's critical to then ask yourself is, does it matter? So maybe, and ironically, I was in a pharmacy just this week that processes more film than most other pharmacies in the country put together. So for most people, you'd ask the question, do I win in terms of film? And it would not matter an iota. These guys are doing tens of thousands of dollars a month in film processing. It's like the 80s again. It's the good old days. So, but do I win, lose, or am I the same? And does it matter? So you've got your business strategy. Then you have a look at your place. And place is really the size of the pharmacy. So we took, some of the speakers, I think Georgina talked about it. Looking at my lease, am I in the right spot? Does my model, do I need to be in a shopping center? Do I want to be on a strip? Do I need to be near a doctor? Am I on the good side of the street or the bad side of the street? And although it's a bit of a pain to move a pharmacy, what do you do? How much space do you need to start to execute your offer? So there is that, where are you in your community? And then there's the layout and design. So how much space do I need? How many clinic rooms? What's the model? I want to be a discount pharmacy, so I don't need clinic rooms. I just need a big box. I'm going to be a sort of professional health pharmacy, so it might be a smaller footprint, but I want to make sure I've got multiple clinic rooms and I've got good access and I can use the pharmacy for other things. So, so to go away and have a look at your lease and locations. So once you've looked at your demographics, after tonight, you can go and have a look at your lease and say, am I happy with where I am? Have I got too much space? Not enough. GMROF, so gross margin return on floor space. So go and have a look at what categories you have in the pharmacy. Are they actually selling? Could you recommission that space and use it better? Use it for a health category, use it for full scope of practice, use it for something that's going to generate a return. But is your layout aligned to your strategy? Do you say that you're a healthcare retailer and then you go and you you've got bays of gifts and, chocolates and these kind of things. And that's not great for diabetic patients who are coming in for a diabetes consult. And then having a look at your product. So from a product assortment strategy, so those points there are style and fashion. So things like if you are a big box discounter, you might be expected, your consumers and patients might expect you to have the products that are being advertised on The Bachelor tonight or some such thing, or have the latest fragrance or the latest makeup. But if you're a health service pharmacy, it could be more about the new vitamin range that's out. So what is the expectation in your signature categories? And they're the ones that are putting the kids through school, that are really the things that your demographic is counting on you for. And intensity is how much stock do you have? If everything's just got a single facing, then it doesn't look like you're really in that category. So how do you have a really strong assortment strategy to make sure that you've got the offer that you're promising, that you've always got the pain products or the cough, cold, or the allergy or the digestion, but you may not always have those cosmetic products, or you may not always have homey peds or some such thing, if that's not part of your core strategy. And so have a look at your offer. Do people expect you to have the new product? Or do they expect you to have the reliable things? And it could be both, but it's important in each category that you can define what you could, would, should have. And from a value perspective, so what is your definition of value? And I know there's a few Chemist Warehouse photos in here, so please don't judge me. But the value proposition of Chemist Warehouse is very clear. We're going to just ticket everything and scream at you. Wherever you walk around the pharmacy, we'll be screaming at you. Versus what are you hoping to achieve by taking that fish oil? Right, so it doesn't matter that it's the cheapest fish oil in the world. It's actually the therapeutic dose is not going to help you for what you want to take it for. So that's where your pharmacy might want to have the expertise and that quality engagement. And how do you? It's the health solution, the health services, the other programs that you can offer, and those kind of things. So when you have a look at your offer, how do you define value? How are you adding value and improving the life of the consumers and patients that are coming in the pharmacy? And then when you have a look at your people, what's it like to work here? What's it like to shop here? So what is the energy and the vibe within the pharmacy? And how do you make sure that if your pharmacy is a fun place versus a serious place, and those kind of things, is how do you make sure there's good energy and that you've got the right people in the right roles and the right goals, and that they're well trained? Because there's no point saying, oh, we're a high service pharmacy and you can always come here. We're always going to look after you and your family. And then no one knows what a vitamin is, or no one knows what there's never access to pharmacists and your brand. What's your brand promise type thing? Is it a national brand, or is it an independent whereby your people are your promise? So how are you investing in those people? And then when you have a look at communication, so once you've done all those things, what's your messaging? So, and the one thing every pharmacy has to challenge themselves with is how are we attracting new consumers and patients? I don't care if people do catalogs. I don't care if you do social media or whatever it is. You've just got to be able to understand, I'm happy farming and I've got a really good customer base, but how are we bringing more people in based on the offer that we have and the promise that we're making? So is it a traditional marketing blend where you might be doing catalogs or flyers and those kind of things? Is it more digital? How are you cultivating your loyalty and in-store and other things? So when you have a look at those 5 things, you've then got your triangle. So the things that they don't see. So things like systems. How are you harnessing technology? How are you embedding efficiency? How is the triangle helping you to make sure that you can deliver those things that your customers and patients are experiencing? So how do you make the pharmacy as efficient as you can? How you're in a buying group? How have you got the best deals? How are you making sure that you're harnessing those things so you're getting the best product at the best price? People are never coming in and not being able to get the products that they need for them and their family. And then how do we build efficiencies? So the Pentagon, the triangle, is a framework to support in the delivery of your strategy. So it doesn't matter whether it's a discounter, whether you're a full service health retailer, whether you're a medical center pharmacy. When something succeeds or fails, if you go around the Pentagon, it will determine very quickly what you did well. We put in a new range, we'd put it in the wrong place. We put it on the bottom shelf, or was it a terrible product, or we charged twice what everyone else is charging. or we didn't train our people, or we didn't tell anyone, or a combination of all the above. So those critical things. So from tonight, have a look at your current business model, what you're executing, and look at those things. Start with your place. Look at the floor space. And then start to have a look at the efficiency. So when you start to look at your P&L and your profit drivers, do things require a human? So just in terms of 60 days, I know we certainly built an opportunity calculator. So go through and have a look at every cost in the business, at everything you're doing, and could you do it more efficiently? And I think we found about 24 separate streams whereby you could either calculate income or savings. So go through and be ruthless, because this is about how you can find efficiencies and profit to reinvest in your business, to execute your business model. And if you drop me a note, I'll be more than happy to share this stuff with you. And then have a look at your health program. So whether it's 7 CPA, obviously preparing yourself for 8 CPAs, that starts to happen. But what are the things you could be, would be, should be doing to generate more income? And the last one then is just inventory. So we've built over the years an automated ordering system. And what it does is it creates tremendous efficiency. People are very emotional about how they order. That, you know, Mrs. Smith loves this product, so I'll make sure I order it. No one ever buys it, and it all is dead stock. But you've got to challenge your business on what is your good, healthy stock ratio and what's your dead stock. So how do you become as efficient as you possibly can? Then again, I'd be more than happy to have a discussion with you on that and take that forward. So in terms of, I know we've covered a bit of ground. I've moved as quickly as I could so you could get on. I think the Matildas are playing tonight. So till it's done type stuff. So what do you do? So firstly, as you look out to 2024, and obviously we are seeing huge paradigm shifts in the market in the next 12 months. 60-day, although it's covering less than 1% of script volume at the moment, we will start to see a slow growth. There's 8 CPA, so obviously 8 CPA, no one's quite sure what that's going to look like, but it will obviously bring change. So in that prism, seek to understand, have a look at your demographics, have a look at your census data, have a look at health conditions in the area. Then have a look at your business, talk to your people, what's going well, what's not, talk to your consumers and patients, what do they want from you? Then build the plan. So build your bridge. I'm currently here, I want to get to here, here's how I'm going to do it. And then use the Pentagon to execute, measure, and review. Make sure that every step is executed brutally and ruthlessly, and your business model will be successful and your strategy will be great. And that's it for me. There was another slide, but I can't get there. There it is. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Andrew. Some really great food for thought. I found that disease state and the Pentagon slides really, really interesting. I don't think we have any questions in the Q&A box, but I do have one of my own. In terms of pharmacy business model optimization, I know we've spoken about some really great long-term strategies, but everyone loves a bit of a quick and dirty fix. Do you have any of those for us today?
Well, I mean, I think the first thing is have a look at your business as it is today, right? Because there's lots of things. The reason I love the Pentagon and just that model is you can walk the floor tomorrow. When you arrive at your pharmacy tomorrow, do not walk in the back door. Walk in the front door. Go and have a look. Is it covered in graffiti? Does it look like a place that would have done good trade in Halloween because it looks so scary for people to come in? So walk your pharmacy as though you were a consumer or a patient who had a health condition, that you are not a pharmacist or a team member, that you are actually standing outside. When you look across and look at your pharmacy, is it delivering on the promise that you'd hoped when you opened that pharmacy? So that would be the critical thing, I think, is you and your team put on a different hat tomorrow. Go and just determine whether given the choice, is this a place you would shop? Is it the kind of place you'd come for the customer service that your team is giving? And if it isn't, then be honest with yourself. Just put a plan in place and start to evolve. So, yeah.
That's great advice. Thank you. Thanks, Andrew, for sharing your expertise with us tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks. And so that brings us to the end of our webinar tonight. I'd like to say a really big thank you to all our presenters, Mani, Georgina, and Andrew. We're really grateful for you giving up your time to be here, particularly after hours. For our audience today, just a reminder that a recording of this webinar will be available on the Guild's YouTube channel in the week to come. If you'd like to see even more Pharmacy Business and Career Network content, you can check out our PBCN podcast, which is available wherever you listen to your podcasts. So thank you again for being here, and have a great night, everyone.